Hi, I'm Representative Al Baldessaro, and here we're back again at Who's Looking Out for You with my great co-host, Representative Janine Notter.
Hi, you.
It's always a pleasure when we get back together again. We've been together how long now? As a legislator and prior to
Oh, I've known you since, I think, maybe 2007?
that? Okay, well.
No.
Well, you look like you're losing a lot of weight here. I mean, you must have gone a
Well,
lot
actually,
more miles.
I'm back to where I was, and I didn't realize how out of shape I had let myself
So how many
get.
miles you done now for all the women out there that thinking about running? Huh?
If you're crazy like me.
If you're crazy like
Since
me.
January 1st, as of today, it's 1,225 miles.
God bless you.
Wow.
God bless you. You know, we got some special guests here today. Two
We
of them,
do,
good
yeah.
conservatives we serve in the House with. Good veterans.
Stellar
vote.
voting records.
Why don't you introduce them? And plus, they had a new candidate running also.
All right, well, I'm going to start backwards because Representative James Blaine has been in the longest. He's seeking his third term. His voting record matches mine. So
Wow.
next to him is Representative Kevin Verville.
Correct.
I think you served one term,
I just finished my freshman term, yes.
and you
Yes, ma'am.
also have a very good voting record. And next to Kevin is Alan Burstein. Did I say your name correctly?
You sure did.
Usually I mess up names, so that's good. And you're running as a conservative, I hope?
Of course.
Awesome.
And you're running in a couple of towns, right? I mean, welcome.
Deerfield, Candia, and Nottingham. Yeah, we have to run for 3 towns, and there's 3 reps from 3 towns.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm
And
running in a slate of 8
He
for
is
Mayor Matt.
holding a position that I once held, which
Yes.
is the tri-chair of the House Republican Alliance, the real conservative platform representatives, constitutional.
That's right.
That's right. So
We rate every bill based on its constitutional basis and its Republican Party platform basis, and we come out with a recommendation of either support this bill or don't support this bill, or sometimes there's no implication and we say we don't have a recommendation. But in most cases, we're able to come out with an analysis of the bill that gives you the breakdown of how constitutional or how adhering to the platform that bill is.
That's awesome. You know, where I'm mostly concerned, Janine, is like, for instance, Kevin, he's a freshman. Jim, I can understand he's a glutton for punishment. But why would you want to
Why
run
are you
again?
doing this
Why would you
again?
want to be like us here? I'm on running my 7th.
I'm
You're
running for my 5th
term. Why?
Well, I've got a good example in the 3 of you, for sure. I ran to make a difference. That's why I ran for office. I was very proud to be selected by the people that I represent to serve them. The first thing I learned is that it's a very steep learning curve. And to be effective in Concord, it takes a certain amount of background time, just time, learning how the process really works. I've been following politics since I was a child, and I thought I understood how the system works. And from the outside, I do. Serving on the inside, it's a little bit different, right? Everything is done in committee. That's the first thing you learn, is that everything is done in committee. And it's learning, who you're serving with, who are likely allies, what your opponents are likely to say, how to try to counter those arguments, how to move legislation forward. It takes time to do that. And I think in the 2nd term, I'll be much more effective at accomplishing that.
They've said a lot about us.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Yeah, they called us names and everything.
Oh yeah, I had that
You don't
video.
get to be a tri-chair on the HRA without being
She
attacked
was
and
attacked
called
big
names.
time.
Oh my God,
They attack me every time in my
even my
district,
brother in
you know.
California saw the video they put out on me.
But the
you know-
great thing is, Al, once you're up there and you've been able to go past that learning curve and you've become effective, and especially when you're able to be a tri-chair of the HRA, you become a lot more effective for the people that you're representing up there.
Without a doubt,
Because
I agree.
a first-term legislator getting up there is learning the process. Al, you'll be going through that process when you win your primary.
Hopefully.
But the returning representatives like Kevin here, now he's had his first term and he's ready to hit the ground running when he gets elected again, and he's able to be much more effective in making sure that he represents the true conservatives, the true people that have put him in place from his district.
Kevin, what committee were you on?
I was on Environment and Agriculture.
Oh, okay.
And Jim, what was he?
Fish and Game.
Fish and Game.
2 terms on
But
Fish
you-
and Game, and I'm hoping I can return to that position because I really do
Well, if I'm the
I'm
speaker,
effective
I
in
may
that.
be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you got time
I
to
can't
chair
imagine
it,
you
but
on any other
you would
committee.
make a
You're
good
like the
chair.
fishing
I
game
could probably
guy.
make time for that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
So
you would
Yeah.
definitely.
You had a contentious bill in your committee this year. Was it the dog bill or?
Yeah, there was actually a couple of contentious bills. One went to quote unquote regulating the use of pesticides and insecticides in places where children play. And so, you know, I see your eyes moving, right? Immediately you see the potential ramifications. Where do children not play?
Right.
And how do we define dangerous? That was contentious. That was one that we were able to work with all the stakeholders to bring a bill to the floor that really, I think, made great strides in meeting everybody's needs. Another one was an opioid bill about registering, you know, the use of opioids, the prescription of opioids that trickled down into veterinarians. And so, you know, the patient is the animal, but you can't report into the database on an animal, so you have to report on the owner of the animal. And so the medication may not be for that. Most veterinarians are not trained in HIPAA law, right? Because they're treating animals, they're not treating people. So this opened up a huge can of worms for them. And it was another bill that, you know, through testimony in committee, through working, you know, with all parties involved, we were able to find a solution that met the needs and the desires of the people that originally filed the bill. It met the needs that the veterinarian professionals needed so that they could do their practice and give treatment to their patients, and, you know, even though they're animal patients, to mitigate that pain. So there was a solution found that really worked well for everybody. So we don't generally see a lot of contentious bills, but the last session was pretty busy for environmental.
When Al was my chairman, we had Obamacare come to our committee.
Oh,
Remember
yes.
that day?
Right, I remember that day.
Oh
You
yeah,
weren't
we
kidding.
were there all day.
You know, on the bill that Kevin was talking about, I heard you was leading the charge in that committee there on the getting people together and, you know, utilizing the team effort, which was a great thing that you did over there. I was impressed. As you know, I'm an assistant majority leader, you know, and I'm the vice chair of a committee. So I was able to see, Fish and Game was one of my committees that I was responsible on, with recreation resource, but I also sat on another committee too, which was labor law. So
And
I
you
was heavy
also spent
involved.
time
Well, you
in
remember,
science, tech,
Al,
and
that-
energy.
My first term in there, I got my wrist slapped by the chairman of my committee because we were short some Republicans, and I went and grabbed you
Yeah.
out of the State House where I knew you were and had you come sit on our committee.
Right.
And I was told
Good
afterwards,
job.
by the way, you have to put in a request, and
Yes.
the person's. I said, you know what? We need to get stuff done.
That's right, yeah, we
and
need to make it
to
happen.
get things done,
That's
if
right.
you know someone's there, have them come sit on
You
the
ain't
committee.
kidding. You know, there's a question I got to ask, and Alan, you see, these two guys are workaholics in your district. They fight for the people of your district.
They sure do.
Tell me why you want to get involved in this here. Both of them, you know, family, beautiful daughter.
Yes.
You know, good family they have, but their families are involved. Why would you want to put yourself in this position? Long hours and more days.
It's a great question. My wife and I live in the beautiful little town of Nottingham, New Hampshire. The other towns, Candia and Deerfield, are just these wonderful, bucolic little cow towns. And I've spent my summer going door to door. I've knocked on about 1,000 doors
Good
now
for
this
you.
summer.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's-
And the voters, there's been two recurring issues as I've talked to people while they're weeding their garden or washing their car, working on their in the garage. And the two issues, number one is taxes. People, every year taxes go up, and people feel that this threatens the quality of life in those towns. And these are well-informed, well-engaged, thoughtful people.
Right.
And they understand that if you don't want high taxes, you got to have low spending. And they get it.
Amen. You got it, brother. You're going to be awesome.
The second issue is, well, to finish on the first, you know, with low spending, it means you got to be self-reliant. You can't be looking to the government for help. These people plow their own
Amen.
driveways, mow their own lawns. They're very self-reliant, and this segues into the second issue, which when you live in our little cow towns, when seconds matter, the police are just minutes away.
Yes.
And people cherish the
Yeah,
Second
we've
Amendment
said that on the
right
House floor.
yeah, that's
More
an
than
old
once.
cliche. Sorry to bring it out again, but it just because it's a
Well-
cliche does not mean it's not true.
I'm holding one of your door hangers, and I have to ask, what are the name of the dogs?
Oh, the German Shepherd is Zola, and the little Papillon is.
Yeah, it is a beautiful cut. I like it.
Isn't she gorgeous? And the dog, the little dog is Dashiell.
Tell me what your team.
Dashiell.
Dashiell.
Yes, after Dashiell Hammett.
You see, one of the very important ones, the top one, which I agree with 100%, expanded educational opportunities.
Yes.
Could be any of ours.
Yeah, I mean, we all agree with
We
that.
all agree
because
with that one.
We support the teachers in the trenches.
Sure.
Not all the, the heavy lifters on the top that are making the big bucks.
Yep.
So what do you mean by that, expanded educational opportunities?
I'm glad you brought that up, and both of my running mates here, or slate mates, would feel this way. Basically, whatever empowers parents to have a greater say in the education of their children is something I can get behind. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish this. It could be educational savings accounts, it could be tax credits, vouchers, charter schools, homeschooling, but parents want to be more engaged with the education of their own child. I don't think that's a radical
agree.
position.
All right, you know what I just saw on Facebook was you got an A+ from school choice?
Yes.
I did.
I got an
Yeah,
A+,
yeah,
you got
yeah.
94%?
No,
That
that
was
was
a
a
typo.
typo. That was a typo on my part. I got an
A+.
A plus.
You got an A+.
I didn't see
I
the,
got-
He was
got
the
an A+.
correction.
94% was attendance.
Oh, I
School
see.
choice
He
bills.
wasn't quite. He wasn't there for one of the votes on the school choice bills, but for every vote he was there for, he was an A+. So they gave him an A+.
You know what?
How
I
about
want
you? I'm
government. I
sorry.
got an A+ too, but I
Okay,
want
awesome.
government out of the classrooms. I want to let teachers teach. I agree with you, and I think together we could definitely make a difference. What was the bill we co-sponsored with Victoria on kids-based?
The play-based education.
That was a-
And you know
that was a
what?
great bill.
There's a new
Fantastic
study
bill.
that
Yeah.
came out. I saw Kevin. You posted something on it. I had also seen it. They just said that the doctors may prescribe more play for children.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
But what does that tell you about the state of our children when doctors have to prescribe more play? One of the things that gets me is when we discuss education in this state, there's always two sides, right? And the other side always talks about public schools. But the discussion really shouldn't be framed around public schools. It's public education.
That's right.
It's the education of the individual child. We should be doing everything in our ability to make sure that every kid gets the education that best fits their particular needs and their particular circumstances. There is no one size fits all.
Amen.
Right? We all know that.
Good.
And
Yeah.
we need to frame this debate much more in public education, the education of the child. The institution really should follow the educational decision. Make an educational decision for the child and then find the institution that meets those needs. Not find an institution and see how many kids that we can force into
Right.
it. And that's the message that I think we're trying to push forward.
I homeschooled my oldest kids. This was back in the early 90s. And
you.
I went through Seton Home Study, and my oldest child and I, we butt heads a lot. And I'd call the school. I say, "Oh, I have an issue with my kid. He doesn't want to do his phonics. He hates his phonics books. He threw it across the floor, across the room." And they told me he needs more time to play. Send him outside. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, solid advice.
Good
It
advice.
is.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it
you know.
sure is.
I came into that from a different perspective. I was in the Raymond school system, and my parents could not get extra help for me because I was advanced beyond my grade level. And they said, well, we have special needs classes. He can go into this special needs class. And they said, he's already bored in class. He would be
Right.
super bored in that
I had
one.
a son like that.
Harriet Cady, one of the people who gets
know
a lot
her.
of bad press in the area,
I
but
know
she
Harriet.
was a real firebrand at the time that I
good
was
choice.
growing up, and she actually fought, and we still couldn't get anywhere. My parents ended up pulling me and putting me in private school at their own expense because we just did not have the forward-thinking ability in this state to say children don't fit a mold. Children do not all fit into that square box, and some of them need to be able to go to advanced classes, and some of them may need special extra classes.
Right.
And right now, I work with a son who's got special needs, and I'm looking to place him in another school right now because I've been fighting since the 4th grade with him, telling them that they weren't fitting his needs, and he's now ready to go into the 8th grade, and they finally said, we can't do anything for him. He needs to go to another school. And it's a struggle because he's already made friends at that school.
Right.
If this had happened back when he was in the 4th grade,
It would have been
it would have been a
easier.
lot
Right.
easier.
Yeah.
And we would have been far more ahead of the ball right now than we are at the moment. And it's frustrating as a parent to not have the ability to make the choices that you know are best for your child and get that backup from the school.
Now, it's an interesting point. So if we carry that out, right, if we look a little deeper there, when we look at the children in public schools that have the most needs, right, those that require the most help, the most attention, where do those kids end up going? The public school sends them, right, to another institution that can better meet their needs. And more times than not, that's a private institution. So we have tax dollars following public school children into private institutions. We choose to only do that for the kids that are the most educationally challenged, right? Basically, you know, with very severe special needs. But why is it that we make that opportunity to them, but yet we can't make it to other kids? Because
Low
we
income.
always hear we don't
Low
want
income,
tax money
especially
going to
low
private
income kids.
schools. But that's
You know.
what's already happening.
That
We need-
educational savings account would have been so good for so many families and allowing them to make the choice.
It was close.
That was
close
SB
vote.
193.
Absolutely, and it was a close vote.
We'll bring it
Do
back.
you know, I went there and I sat there for 3 hours listening to testimony. Then when it was finally my turn to testify, first thing out of my mouth, I said, it's a shame. I sat for 3 hours and not heard one testimony about the child. It was
was all
all
jobs, Bill.
about the money.
Yeah.
We're gonna lose money, we're gonna lose this, the sky's gonna fall. We can't survive in the public school. Not one comment about the child. That's the way I started it off.
And it's
You know,
true.
and
It
it's
is
a
true.
shame.
We're losing track of
Right.
the children when we're tracking the dollars.
That's
and
right.
It's
That's-
not the way it needs to be.
I agree. I think we should let
So,
teachers do their thing. and
We've
let them
done
teach.
shows on education and also in my other show in Merrimack, and we were talking about you because you gave us the big number of how many kids we've lost, and that's that other bill here in Londonderry.
Oh, that was on the other bill, the other tax credit bill for businesses. They said here in
Where the
Londonderry,
businesses could
somebody
take a
had to-
tax credit for
right,
making a donation
to go
to
to
the-
like private schools
Sure.
or public schools.
Yeah, I remember that bill.
charter.
I remember
But
that.
anyways, some of the liberals in my town were saying the sky was going to fall. Only 2 kids in my district went off into these other private schools.
A whole 2.
I'm a father of 7 children. Each one of my children had a different way. One of my kids, they wanted to put on Ritalin, okay, in California because he was hyper. I refused. He's the one I told you doing live PD, does videos. He started
Sure.
out.
Well, he found his
doing it.
niche.
He found his niche, right? He got a degree in communications, and he's doing his thing. But he was like you, a smart kid, bored in school, had his homework done before he went home.
I refused to
You
do
know?
my homework.
Yeah, well,
I
he
was
did
I
it
was the
before
kid
you
who
got
sat
home.
there in class and said, "Look, I've just passed the test. Why do I have to do the homework? This is a waste of my time. If you put a test in front of me and I can pass it, I don't need to do the homework. That's just a waste of time."
So you think Alan's ready for this game?
You know,
You ready, Alan, or what?
I'm trying, before we formed our slate, I studied these guys' voting record. And I see it as I'm going to be voting 95, maybe even higher than that percent.
Oh, without a
with
doubt.
them. We share the same values. We represent the same district. It was a no-brainer for me.
You know,
to
not to
join.
go too far off track with the educational thing, but you had mentioned the Second Amendment rights, and I wanted to bring up the fact that I was a co-sponsor of the constitutional carry when that went through. I believe you might have been as
No,
well.
I wasn't on
You
that. I
weren't.
co-sponsored Stand Your Ground.
Okay. I co-sponsored the
time ago.
constitutional carry, and that makes me a big target because the number one issue that I've seen on every single one of the Democrats running right now is that they want to repeal that. And for them to get into office and take a majority would mean that we would lose our constitutional
talking.
right that we just gained.
That's what
before
I'm
we've
talking
even
about
had
on a
time
show
to-
later today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know something? I ask the Democrats all the time, show me where New Hampshire has a problem. We're the safest state in the country because of our gun laws. People think twice about breaking into a house. Where's the problem you want to fix?
Or
Well,
doing
take
anything
it-
in public. You don't know who's carrying.
That's right. That's the best thing.
But take it a little further, right? So we passed constitutional carry. Constitutional carry has been the law of the land for several months, and
2
there's
years.
2
Well,
years.
actually, a lot, yeah.
So there has been no
Right.
incidents that I'm aware of
Vermont since their existence.
since their existence. Absolutely, and Maine
And
beat
Maine
us by
signed
a
it
couple
before
of
us.
years.
Right.
They beat us
by a
Yeah.
couple of
one
years.
year.
Right,
They
one
beat
year,
us by
yep.
1 year.
Right.
An armed society is a polite
Right,
society.
yeah,
And even
right.
Vermont.
Vermont's
And
been
they're
forever.
upside down.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Well, they
That's all-
seceded from New Hampshire, but that's another
yeah,
story.
that's right.
That's a story.
We need a wall over there.
We've talked about this on our shows before, but even in World War II, the Japanese did not come to the mainland because they didn't know who had guns.
I remember that quote. He said, you know, invading mainland USA would be a suicide mission because there is a gun behind every blade of grass.
Right, yes. That's right. It's a no-brainer.
Now we live in one of the towns of Deerfield, Nottingham, and Candia. I feel like they're some of the safest towns in the country.
Oh, without
You know,
a doubt.
there's a Democrat from the Seacoast that I won't mention by name, but he's trolled me quite often on Twitter.
Mention his name. I don't care.
You know,
Oh,
well, okay.
Alan after.
Yeah. I don't
He
care.
goes
You know
after
Tim
people.
Horrigan.
Oh, yeah, Tim
Oh,
Horrigan.
Tim
yeah,
Horrigan
Tim
has-
is-
He
yeah.
resigned, you know that, because his comments there that he said about Sarah Palin.
I
He's
know.
useless.
Yeah, but he came
I
back.
I don't care people say, if I say he's useless.
He's
Right,
so
he is.
Yeah, he is. Call it what it is.
So he
He
trolled
used
me
to
on
sit
Facebook, and
behind
he said to me, "Boy, here I am visiting Deerfield, and it's such a lovely little town. I don't see why Representative Spillane feels the need to be armed all the time." And I responded to him. I said, "It's a nice little town because I go around armed all the time, and so does everybody else." That is
Are you
it
the
in
one
a
who used to
nutshell.
tweet
Right.
about all
You
the
want the
time?
good guys
Is that
to have
you?
guns.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? And he just doesn't get it. And there's a lot of disconnect there that they don't understand that we have safe communities because we have caring community members who are armed.
That's right.
Exactly.
And those caring community members are going to have your back.
Without
And
a doubt.
I remember one town meeting in Deerfield when they were talking about putting a resource officer in the school. And one of the police officers got up to testify, and he said, "You know, we really need a resource officer in the school who's armed because you would not believe how many permits to carry I go around and deliver to town people in a week." And I said to him, "I object. I take offense to the fact that you would imply that having more armed community members means that our school children are more dangerous.
Right.
I personally feel comforted knowing that the fathers and mothers of the children in my school are carrying weapons.
That's right.
And
Law-abiding
can defend,
citizens.
because
But-
they'll not only defend
Yeah,
their own children, they'll
that's right.
defend my child.
Law-abiding
But
citizens.
that's right. See that, and that's the thing, right? The people he's issuing those permits to are law-abiding citizens that are following the rules. They're applying for a permit that, thank goodness, we no longer need. But they were doing it the right way. The least of all threats are the people that are doing it the right way. When you see people involved in illegal gun violence in the news, and there was a concealed carry weapon, they almost always never had a permit.
Right.
They were
It was a
felons. They
stolen
weren't
gun.
even
It was-
Stolen
gun. They weren't
gun,
supposed to
you
have
know.
it in the
Criminals,
first place.
yeah,
So
they don't
to
have
punish
registered weapons.
law-abiding citizens by making
Right.
hurdles to make it more difficult to exercise our rights, it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I voted in favor of constitutional carry. For me, that was a no-brainer. I mean, it was
We've
a
been
proud
trying
moment
for-
to vote
for
in favor
years
of
to
that,
get
and
that
to see
passed.
it pass and get signed
Because,
by the governor.
you know something, I carry all the time, and Janine knows me, as long as she's known me, I always carry the Constitution, New Hampshire and the United States, in my pocket, because I'm not a know-it-all. When I was tri-chair, I always
Dan,
looked up
it's
and broke it out.
it's a know-it-all.
You know what I mean?
He knows it
Yeah.
backwards and forwards.
Right,
Yeah.
but I always pull it out just to make sure my interpretation was correct. And I tell people, show me where in that Constitution I got to ask somebody for permission to protect my family
Absolutely.
or to protect others.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
not in there.
That's right.
It gives me the
And you know what?
authority.
I don't know a single person who is a lawful citizen carrying his weapon who would not step up and protect
Oh, without
somebody
a
in a
doubt.
time of
You
need.
never see it on the news, but it's happening all over.
It happens all the
over
time, and it
country.
never gets
Right.
reported.
No.
Because it doesn't fit the narrative.
No,
But I
not at
feel
all.
safer in a community where
Right.
I know my neighbor and all these other parents are protecting our children the same way I would.
Right.
It may not be my child that's in danger. I'm still going to step forward
You know,
because
he-
I'm the one protecting
Did you ever go
those
through the
children.
course here in Londonderry, the women's course? Here in Londonderry, we have a fishing game club. And they got
Oh,
a
it's a
waiting,
great one, too.
They got a waiting list to get on there. They got the 400-yard line, 300 or whatever.
I want to try to get into that one.
But
for
it's
a
a
bit.
waiting list to get in. But there are more women taking the NRA course that are getting, we're getting permits. Now they don't have to.
You know that started
In
under
order to protect
That
themselves.
trend started under Obama, I believe.
Yeah.
I was stunned when I saw that the trend moved the needle under Obama, that more women suddenly were arming themselves
Right.
when they thought that they might get
We
disarmed.
were scared.
Well, that's it. You know,
Well, we have a mutual friend. I think you all know her, Susan Olson and Kim Morin.
yeah, absolutely.
They're former NRA instructors, and they took a group of us.
you know,
Victoria
Victoria
Sullivan.
just passed.
Yes.
Victoria
Right.
just passed her,
Victoria did.
her
Representative
NRA.
Victoria
Absolutely.
Sullivan. Yeah,
I'm an
from
NRA
Manchester.
range safety officer. I'm a volunteer instructor for fish and game, hunter safety. So I certainly have also been, you know, very involved. Second Amendment. I'm a member of Nottingham Fish and Game in Candia.
Right.
I served on the board of directors for a couple of years. I'm a member out at Chester Rod and Gun as well. There's a gentleman out there, Howard Hool. He has taught more women-only firearms classes than
Right.
any other NRA instructor in the United States. So that's a New Hampshire native, right over here in Chester, that has that title.
But the Democrats.
One of our colleagues, Representative J.J. Varela, has an outdoor range, so I go up there sometimes with
Yeah, Scott Wallace too does.
Victoria Sullivan
Yeah.
and Elizabeth
I'm lucky
Ferrari.
enough to have
Nice.
about 200 acres around my house, so I just go in my backyard. But we are
I
going
shoot in my
to, the three of
backyard
us are
here.
going to go out and we're going to do some shooting soon. We're going to go right over to Kinnecum. We're going to do some
Awesome.
shooting at Kinnecum.
I shoot right in my backyard here in
Yeah.
Londonderry.
Well, there you
my
go.
My wife loves to shoot. She always has heels on.
I live in a neighborhood. Yeah, she does.
and
Yeah,
I
I've seen
asked
her.
her-
I've seen her paint the deck
You
in her
see,
heels
yeah.
and skirt.
And I
Yeah.
ask her, why do you always wear heels? She says, because if somebody breaks in the house, I'm not going to say, wait, let me take my shoes off.
Right.
She
That's
says,
true.
And you never
I
know
have
when
to-
you need a
yeah.
hammer.
Right,
They
yeah.
come at- you know.
Without a doubt. But let's get on. We all know where we stand on Second Amendment, and I'm glad you're a great
You're
supporter.
with us, right?
You know,
With
oh
us?
yeah, I see he's got
Okay.
it. Oh yeah, he's fearless support here. I see that.
of course.
But you know, one of the things I wanted to bring out here in Londonderry, when there's a school function, the parents, unbelievable, standing room only. Are your school districts like that also in your districts? Because I see something on here on the educational opportunities. That's very important to the future of the state.
You know, it's frustrating sometimes trying to get involvement from the community on some of the issues that are of most importance. And it's incredible to me because I am active and always have been. When I see an issue and want to see it get changed, I take action to do it. That's why I ran in the first place. To see people in the town that have an opinion, feel strongly about something, but don't bother to show up at the meeting and they just wait to hear what happened afterwards.
Right.
It's a little frustrating. And you know, Kevin's probably got a lot more experience on that than me because he's attended so many more school board meetings than I have. I find them extremely frustrating.
So our public events, you know, whether the kids are putting on a musical or a play or a concert, whatever that event may be, the turnout is absolutely fantastic in all three towns. The public schools are very well supported in our three districts.
Yeah, they
That's
are.
my experience. Education is a very personal and often very sensitive issue. And the number one reason that I get why parents choose not to speak up, particularly publicly, is that they're afraid of negative repercussions
their
for their
kids.
child.
I see
in the
that here,
classroom.
too, at the
Now,
school
but
board.
the one thing I will say, because I've been very vocal,
Right.
very outspoken, perhaps even over the top at
Right,
times.
I've done the same myself.
My
you know.
children have never, ever had any consequence, any negative impact
Right.
from that at all, nor have my wife and myself. While we may not agree on messaging, while we may not agree on issues, it has always been my experience that the teachers, the faculty, the staff still give that same level of attention, that same level of respect that they do. And that's why it breaks my heart so much when I do hear people tell me I would love to say something, but I'm afraid of what
I see
could
the
happen
same
because it
thing
doesn't
in
it
my
doesn't
district,
happen.
right.
I think the schools
Right.
are receptive, and when they don't get that message, they get a skewed perspective of what their clientele
Do you know what
wants.
most people in districts and cities and towns don't understand? When their property taxes go up, they blame the legislators.
Yeah, they do.
What they don't realize is when you go to the polls, if you don't go to the school board during the budget process and speak out, that's where all the spending is.
And it's
not
mostly
the State
schoolies
House.
that go to it.
Yeah. When you're giving over a lot of overtime out, when you're giving all these pay raises, that's where it go. We haven't raised the state, it's called the SWEP, the statewide
We talked about
education
this last
property
week.
tax. In 9 years, we haven't raised it. Why? Because everyone says they want taxes. They want more money for the schools from the state. The state is on
Now,
everybody.
Have you been to the charter schools? Have you had a
Oh,
chance to
yeah.
visit them?
Well,
We have one in town. The Longview
do you?
School in town is a charter school.
Have you been over to
What's
that
their-
one there?
what? No, I
What are
haven't.
they?
They're a
What's
high
their
school.
focus?
They're an outdoor-centric high school for kids that don't fit quite into the normal school curriculum.
I live near the Academy of Science and Design, and I'm really impressed with that school. And then, close over here is,
The one I went with you there at the Civil Air, the one in Nashua.
Yeah.
That school is unbelievable.
that used to be in
Founders
Merrimack,
Academy in
but
Manchester's
my
doing
oldest
a
would have
fantastic
benefited
job.
from a charter school, but they didn't have it until he was grown and gone.
You know, back to what Jim was saying earlier about one size doesn't fit all. Most of my career was spent running a school photography company with my brother, and we shot about 1,000 clients with a camera, of course.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to
Otherwise,
shoot
it's
them
really
any
bad
other.
for business.
Yeah,
Good
right.
thing you clarified that up. I can see the liberals tomorrow. Oh, Alan wants to shoot.
But you know, there are so many different flavors of schooling. There's science focused. There were Japanese immersion schools, French immersion.
Right.
One size doesn't fit all. And again, whatever gives people more choice, I get behind that.
Oh, the Founders Academy, that's close too. That's right
That's
by
right,
the
that's
airport.
right.
Yeah.
I was trying to get them here.
Representative
in
Sullivan
Londonderry.
had her kids there. I don't know if she still
Maureen
does.
Mooney, who used to
Yeah,
be a
she's a
state
good
rep
friend of
with me
mine.
when I first ran, she's actually running that now.
She's the dean, the principal.
yeah,
but
the dean,
I'm
right.
going to see her later today. Where she's
And like I
going to
said,
do a
she's
show with
a
her.
lawyer, but a former state rep also.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, people will ask me, you know, well, what makes you such an expert? Why are you so vocal? And I tell them, well, you know, I am no expert. It's public education. You don't necessarily have to be one. But I went to public school through 8th grade. I went to Catholic high school in Concord through high school. I went to Plymouth State College for my undergrad. I went to Tulane University for graduate school. I taught I did my student teaching at Pembroke Academy in New Hampshire. I taught in North Andover, Mass, high school science. I met my wife while teaching science at Hollis Brookline High School. Now I have my 2 kids in the public school. So I've been in and out of public education. I used to hold the license 7 through 12 to teach science. So I've been in and out of education my whole life. I've seen the private side, I've seen the public side, I've seen it from the inside and from the outside. And most people don't realize how much experience they actually have with education. Just between coming through the education system as an individual, and then most of us are at an age where we have children, and or even adult children, you know, bringing our kids through the school system. A lot of people are more experts on education than they give themselves
And you
credit
know what,
for.
Kevin, I would, not to disparage your expertise and experience going through those systems as an educator, but I would say that parents know their children the best.
Oh, absolutely.
And parents are the experts on education.
that's right. They know better.
And when a school comes back and tells you, well, you don't know anything about education or children, that just grates me the wrong way.
Right.
Because they are only there because they've been put there. And they've 9 times out of 10 been put there through the parents.
Mom and dad
I
see it.
still remember when I was just a kid, and I had one teacher who refused to let me get up and use the restroom. I kept raising my hand. I had to go. She refused. My mom went into that school and raised holy hell and told them, "You work for me." And my God, that teacher was like, "What do you mean I work for you? I work for you work for me.
That's right.
I pay the taxes. You work for me."
Right.
And that's a message that is lost quite often on the regular parents of these kids. They have to understand the school is there for you.
That's right.
The school is there at your will and pleasure. Anything that school does should be because you want it to do it. Anything that you have for a program in that school should be because it benefits you and your children. The parents need to understand where the power lies. It is in the parents of the children who pay the taxes that fund the school.
You know, Al,
What committee did you say you were on again?
Environment and agriculture.
And you're an educator.
Former educator. I'm now
Well,
the
that was
technical
the choice
director
of-
for an aerosol valve manufacturing company with world headquarters in Manchester.
Okay, I'm
New
just
Hampshire.
wondering. I'm just listening to
The
talent
last
and
speaker,
education.
the last speaker
Why he's
wasn't
not
always
like a
good at
vice
putting
chair or a
people.
chair or
Yeah,
something like that.
you know.
What is Howard Pearl? Was he on your committee?
Yes.
Okay, so you did have the dog bill.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah,
mention.
Howard's a great guy there. But go ahead. I didn't mean to.
So you had mentioned something that gets mentioned all the time, and we saw it, everybody glosses past it. that the message that you received was if we allow the educational savings account to go forward, right? If we allow that to happen, it's going to drain money from the public school, it's going to drain students from the public school, and then the public school is going to implode on itself, right? If you make that small amount, because the educational savings account is the state portion of the funding,
3,600.
and it's less than
35,
right, and it's
36.
less than
It's not
less
much.
than 20% of the total education funds, right? 80% is local, 20% at the state level. If you're saying that that modest program would encourage enough children to leave their public school to pursue other opportunities that the public school couldn't survive, what does that tell you about the performance of your local public school? If your public schools are as good as we all say they are, then when you make these programs available, the number of children that avail themselves of these opportunities should be relatively small. It should be a small threat. And if it's not, then really the public school needs to look inward to address whatever those shortcomings are so they can better meet the needs of their clients, which are students.
It's not far from right to work.
Right.
It's not.
When you talk about a union and the unions scream that if we pass right to work, they're going to go completely under because everyone will leave the union, what does it tell you? That people are only in the union because they're forced to be
That's
in the
right,
union.
yes.
And I have spoken to several
We all
union
have.
members that
They want out.
have said different things. And, you know, I've had, of all the many union members I've spoken to, I've had two that came forward and said, you know what, I'd still be a member of my union.
If
and
they're
I
a
said,
good union, they
why?
would be.
I
What
said,
was it?
why? Why would you still be a member of your union? Well, because it was actually the electrical poll workers,
right.
and he said, because they provide continual training for us, they provide discount equipment for us, and they provide
So it's a good union
Right.
then.
Then they have nothing to worry
and
about.
the amount that I
Pass right to
pay
work.
is equivalent to what I get out for benefits. And I said, then that's
So
great.
you guys weren't
That-
around in 2011.
Right.
You didn't go through what we
But
had to
how
walk
do
the
you
gauntlet.
justify forcing other people
Right.
to be in it just so that the union itself does not
Right.
collapse?
Yeah. That union there is a good union then, taking care of their people. People won't walk away. I
Right.
grew up with a union. My father was a union guy. My brother's a Teamster.
Yeah, my dad
You know
was
what I
a
mean?
Teamster.
But the thing is, they have a lot of problems, and my father passed away, but you weren't forced to be part of that union. You know, it made a big difference. So right now, we're really right to work on the public side because they have a choice now.
Right.
Well, yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
be interested to see how many dropped out.
But you know, it's
what
Did you
unions?
co-sponsor Right to Work?
I sponsored one. and
I
my-
thought you did,
My
yeah.
bill passed the House. Me and Bill
I'm
O'Brien.
pretty sure we all voted right
Yeah.
to work on
Bill
this.
Oh, yeah.
O'Brien took it one way when we were HRA. I took it another because we used to meet at people's houses back then and strategize. I did the Wisconsin model where police and fire were exempt.
Yeah.
Right.
My model,
Might have
my bill
passed.
passed the House. Bill's died. Went to the Senate and the Senate killed it.
Well, you know,
That's when good bills went
Yeah.
to die.
one of the problems we have
Yeah.
with the Senate, and I mean, we might as well indoctrinate Alan into the realities of
Please.
this, is
The House of
you know,
Lords.
the
Yeah.
Senate is harder to get these kind of things through because it costs so much money for them to run,
Right.
and they make the same $100 a year we do, and they have to listen to groups that donate to their campaigns that we as House members don't necessarily have to listen to. And so quite often we will, as a body, come forward and say, we represent, as 400 people in the House, represent the people of New Hampshire, and this is the way we want it to go. And the special interests are able to swing things a little more in the Senate because
Maybe they should wear jackets like NASCAR so we can know who their
You ain't
sponsors
kidding.
are.
Hey, I'll give you another example. I don't know if you were there. Workforce housing.
Okay.
When I ran a few years, I mean, I've been up there
Flanagan.
12 years, but a few terms ago, the Democrats.
that was 2008.
My
That
second
was before
term,
me.
The Democrats put in workforce housing. My district, Londonderry, hated it. They didn't want it because who is the government to come in and tell us how we should run our community?
Absolutely.
And I told them I would do everything in my power to try to get rid of it. I co-sponsored 2 pieces of legislation, 2 different sessions. Twice it died in the committee. We overturned it on the floor, went to the Senate, and the Senate killed it.
Yeah.
There was
Twice.
only one good part of the workforce housing bill, and I know because we don't want it in Deerfield either, right?
Mm-hmm.
We resisted it in Deerfield, and the beauty was if your local community did not pass workforce housing zoning, there was no teeth in the bill from the
Right.
state. The only thing the state could do is wag their finger at you.
And we rejected it twice in a row.
We
Right, but
rejected
it
it
helped the
about.
companies now to make it easy to take your district to court.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the only thing that bill did. It made it easier because there was original
a bad
court
bill.
case that somebody lost.
There's not a lot of cases where I don't like the teeth, that the state doesn't have teeth to make a community comply with a state law. I have to say that we definitely need to have more teeth in the right for the home rule situation with the guns, because there's too many communities out there that are passing gun restriction laws that are against
They
state
can't.
law, and they can't, and they know they can't,
Right.
but they're still passing them because there's no teeth in the state to
Then
basically
they
come
should
back and
challenge
tell
them in
them no.
court. you
But
know?
it takes an individual to
Right,
do
takes
that, and it
with
costs
that.
money.
And I did that in my district because they were doing something unconstitutional. On a quorum, you needed 500 people to go to a school deliberative session before you could speak. That's unconstitutional. You're stepping on people's rights. That's during the voting process.
Absolutely.
So 2 town councils and myself took it to court. We gave them every opportunity to stop it. They refused the school. Their school board lawyer said no. But anyway, make a long story short, we took it to court. Judge Nadeau said it was unconstitutional. Now they don't have it anymore. But you know, since we're on education, you know, and I know you're a family man, and you know, I know all of you do everything you can. You brought your daughter here.
I did.
Okay, today, Erin. Okay, Spillane. I'd like to bring her in and have her stand between you there, right? And I was going to do it
Come
in
on up,
5
Erin.
minutes, but I want to bring her in right now and basically, Janine, maybe ask her a question on what does she think. Are you in a public school?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And you go to school with
This
Kevin?
is Erin Spillane, by the way.
Pretty girl.
So she goes to school with my twin daughters. They're
Okay.
in the same grade, in the Deerfield Community School. All right.
And what do you think of the schools? How do you like it?
It's okay.
It's okay.
What's your favorite
I need you to
subject?
speak a little louder.
Besides
'cause it's
recess.
Speak louder, because we have microphones here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. Now,
What's your favorite subject?
Uh,
You like math?
no,
I'm not a math person.
not a math,
How about history? Science?
I like science.
science.
Nice.
So you got some
Science.
good teachers.
Yeah, I have some. Good
See, normally if we let the teachers and keep government out of the classroom and the unions out of the classroom, they'll excel. Kids will go, move
Absolutely.
on. That's how it was
Absolutely.
when I was growing up. The teachers ran everything. And then moms and dads went in, you know, and talked to them. What do you think, Alan?
Of course.
You know,
Let teachers do their thing.
let them do their thing there, yes. So you think teachers should just do their thing, right, and teach? You're gonna be a teacher when you grow up?
No.
No? What do you want to be, an engineer like Dad?
No.
No? What do you want to be?
A lawyer.
A lawyer?
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
hey.
Oh, I like that. We may need her.
Yeah, we have several colleagues who are lawyers.
That's right, we do. And actually, some of them are good conservative lawyers, too. You
Bill
know?
O'Brien,
Yeah, Bill O'Brien, yeah. That's right.
he was our speaker.
Yeah, Claire Roulard. I think Claire did a great job on that
She's
last
not running
bill.
again.
No,
She's
it's a
not.
shame.
Dan Hines, right? He's
Dan's another
Dan?
he's a
Dan's
lawyer.
running for
the Senate
He
right now.
lived in my town and now he lives in Bedford.
Yeah.
So he's in a primary.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So now, what I'd like to do now is while you're up here, you can hang out with us and stuff. There was something there that talked about unconstitutional limited government. Explain what you meant by that. I know, but I want my listeners to know, and your listeners.
Constitutional limited government.
I mean, I'm sorry, constitutional.
Constitutional limited
Yeah,
government. I think most people in our towns agree that the proper function of government is to protect life, liberty, and property. Over time, there's been significant mission creep. I think the founders of our country had a healthy distrust of government, and that tradition is carried on in the towns of Deerfield, Nottingham, and Candia. We have a healthy distrust of our government, and because of that, we want to keep it small, and we want to keep it
Exactly.
Uh,
And those are issues
constitutional.
that it ran on
We
smaller
have the senior state
government.
rep sitting here now. Have you ever read in the...
Who's the senior state
You
rep?
and I.
You. Oh,
You and I
okay.
are.
I'm a senior?
Now, wait, I'm bringing something up here, very important. Have you ever noticed in the U.S. Constitution where it says that government, the federal government, should be involved in our education?
No.
I never see. Did you guys ever see it in there?
Not at all.
No, I haven't, and I'll tell you, I would love to see that department simply defunded and closed down. In my
Yeah, I could've
opinion,
seen it.
there's no federal role in public education at all, and a very limited role, if any, at the state level. Even the state level, you know, we've misinterpreted words, right? We've decided that cherish means fund,
Right.
and
Oh,
I
yeah,
can't
I
find
remember
any
that
I can't find
discussion.
any dictionary where cherish means fund.
I
I
agree.
went to an event up in Newport, and you know, the lawyers of Claremont 1 and Claremont 2 are essentially circling the wagons, getting ready for Claremont
Right.
3. So we really need to get some good conservatives up in Concord so that when these issues come back up, they can be put in their rightful place. You know, that talking tour was all about revenue, more state money into local districts. For what purpose, they wouldn't say, except for to give every school the same amount of money.
And it's ridiculous.
Which doesn't do anything.
No.
And the revenue source is never openly discussed. But let's not kid ourselves. The revenue source is income
It's
tax
raise taxes
or
on people's
sales
property,
tax.
businesses.
And income tax
That's what
is
it is.
their preferred vehicle.
Right.
It is-
And we need to fight any type of broad-based
Mm-hmm.
tax.
Well,
It is a
and-
ridiculous assumption that a child needs a certain dollar amount no matter where they live in the state, because the economies
that was last
in
week's show.
Coos County versus the economies in Salem here are totally different. And it may cost
Right.
more to fund a child down here through school than it does in Coos County. For the state to have to make one rule that fits every child in the state
Right.
is absolutely
I think the
ludicrous.
state should stay out of it, because otherwise we're gonna raise property taxes to support it when it's a local control
no.
issue. Look at the conversations we have at Werner Horn in Franklin. Franklin pays, I think, less than 28% or something in their school systems, whereas Londonderry and others pay more money to the school. They're crying they want more money from the state because their town government is capped and they only spend so much on education. So they think the rest of the state should funnel them.
Well, and what's very interesting about that is you talk to a lot of people like that, and they'll tell you, well, the problem is we bring appropriate budgets to the voters, and then the voters vote them down. And not necessarily Franklin, which is a little different because they've got a spending cap to live under, but other communities will say, well, we brought appropriate funding, you know, to the townspeople, and they voted it down. So we need to come up with the money somewhere else. Well, no, the local citizens are telling you how much they're willing
That's
to
right.
spend on
Yeah.
local ed.
Live within
and
it.
you have to live within that means. And if you really need more money, then you simply need to convince your voters that
special
that's
session.
that at a special session or the next year's session, that money is required and needed and will be of value. If you don't win the vote, you have to rehone your message
Right.
and come back again. But to say, well, my voters won't pay for it at the local level, so I want to upshift it to the state is ludicrous. And that's the thing. We always hear about downshifting. Oh, we're downshifting. The local communities should be paying their own bills. And when they don't, we're not downshifting, we're upshifting. And when we upshift to the state, it gets diffuse. Who do you go to control that spending, right? Once it goes to the state, it's this large amorphous thing that you lose control over.
Right.
And that's why you need local funding.
Exactly. The state control is always better than federal control, and local control is always better than state control.
Amen.
No,
Just to follow on a little bit to what Kevin was saying earlier, the Department of Education didn't even exist before 1977. I think it came
Under Carter.
under
Right,
Carter.
under Carter, right.
So, you know, how did you get to be so
Yeah.
smart without the wonderful Department of
Right,
Education?
you ain't kidding, yeah.
Wow.
I was in the Marine Corps already 2 years,
Well, let me ask you a
right.
trivia question. When was the American public school the envy of the world? The American public school system was the envy of the world in the 1950s and the 1960s.
alive.
We had the space, mission. We put a man on the moon.
Right.
If you look at the science and the technology that came out of U.S. public education, and that's before the feds really started to get their fingers. And in the 60s, the fingers started to go in, and by the 70s, you started to see the effect of it, and we're still seeing the effect of it today. We are not producing the caliber student that we used to. And they
So
say, well,
if you wanna
times have
screw
changed.
things
but
up, get the government involved, is
Right.
basically what you're saying.
That's what I'm
Yep.
saying.
A
And if
few
you want
years
to
ago,
fix
I
it,
think
get
you
them
might
out.
have been there. We had legislation. We were trying to stop the grants coming in, because what schools were grabbing onto the grants and then there's carrots that go along
They
with
always
it.
come with strings.
And they come with strings. And we were trying to say, no, 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 do not take it no more, because it's a downshifting of money. They're going to give you a certain amount, and then you're going to pick it up the rest of the time. And you're required to
With
pay.
all the rules and
It's a
regulations that
there's
come on the
mandates
Those
for it.
grants,
Right.
federal grants are some of the worst things that we can get ourselves into,
It's a
whether
mousetrap.
it be from school or from even some of the
Or-
public safety
Or
grants
even
that they give
public
into the
parks,
police.
Even public parks.
Well, you look at the police. All right, they gave out a lot of federal grants to the police departments. They pay for an officer or extra officers for X number of years,
Right.
but then those officers are on the payroll, and suddenly the grant's gone, and the local community ends up having to bump up its taxes to pay for the officers that
That's
were
right.
hired under the
Yep.
grant, and the strings are still attached.
That's right.
You can't get out from under it once you've accepted
Nope.
that, and these
We have to
communities
cut the
throughout the
federal
state,
ties.
absolutely.
Yep.
Just to change gears a little bit, we had mentioned the Academy of Science and Design, where
Oh, yeah.
you and I went for, that was for Civil Air Patrol. So
okay.
as state reps, Alan, we get called to go to see the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts and
Right.
and the CAP kids.
I
Cadets.
promoted a few
So
of them too. It was nice.
I always give
Okay.
them a Constitution. I
That's a
hand it
good
to them.
thing.
I say, "There's 58 pages, and you can run a country on this."
And we should give them a New Hampshire Constitution as well.
Oh, without a doubt.
Ours is stronger than the federal
Yeah,
Constitution.
yes it is. Big time.
Do you have any bills that you guys are going to put in the last 8 minutes?
You know, there's an interesting one that I'm planning to put in. I just realized not too long ago that New Hampshire is not reciprocal with the state of Maine for notaries of public. As silly as that sounds, if you are a notary in Maine, you can't sign documents for someone in New
makes no
Hampshire.
sense.
Yet they do it with Massachusetts. So there's no reason why we shouldn't allow reciprocity with
Right.
Maine
Yeah.
for notaries of public.
Slow
And that should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I would imagine that one is a bipartisan no-brainer bill that could go through fairly easy once I'm reelected.
So at the request of a constituent, I filed a bill last year. The Education Committee and the state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, has been tightening the noose on school transportation, particularly after school. So basically now, if you want to bring kids to an off-site event that's an official school event, you have to contract a bus driver and a bus company. And that's cost prohibitive. You take a small science club or Future Lawyers of America club, you got 6 kids that want to go somewhere, the cost of that bus is prohibitive. So I had filed a bill to have another means, to guarantee the vehicle is safe, that there's insurance coverage, et cetera, to provide another path for student transportation. The Department of Ed fought it, and the reason they fought it was they didn't want a standalone section in the code. They really would prefer to go back and change the existing code to have it built in so that there's not 2 parallel systems, which is fair enough. And for that reason, it died in committee. So I'll be bringing that bill back, but after consulting and working with the Department of Ed
Right.
to get something that they can get behind, that they can support, to bring some relief, especially to the small school
Right.
districts and the small
Frank
towns where we
Edelblue
are.
is doing a great job.
He
Yes,
is doing
he
a
is.
fantastic job, absolutely.
Edelblue's
Yeah,
doing
well,
great.
what you were talking about on reciprocity there, I always screw that word up. But anyways,
You did
there's a
again.
bill. I went to the White House on a veterans leadership meeting, and we're talking about telehealth. And we have veterans moving into the state that are being seen by psychiatrists in other states. Well, it takes them maybe 60 days, 30, 60 days to find a new doctor. Meanwhile, they get no prescription or new medication or anything or be seen within 60, especially somebody that's suicidal. So this here telehealth medicine would give them a 60-day window to be able to take care of those patients until they get a new
And
That's
you know,
a great
I work
idea.
for Philips
great.
Medical Systems, and telehealth is one of the big things that we've moved into.
Right.
Philips Medical Systems actually serves the VA.
So
And,
I have language already ready for that one.
And our company is actually on the forefront of telehealth,
Yeah.
allowing people to have the whole camera setups and everything at home so that they can consult with a doctor as though they're right in the office from home and
Awesome.
get their body vitals read, their
It's
all their
a
regular
no-brainer.
stuff done.
The
and-
VA does it, but we're talking civilian providers that are outside the state, that their patients move into New Hampshire.
Hospital to home
and have
is a
nothing.
big
Yeah.
future
It's a
movement
cost
because
savings.
it saves so much money because just one day in the hospital is prohibitively expensive, And now everybody's realizing how much it costs, because with Obamacare, everybody's now paying for it.
Right.
And
Even a doctor visit is over $100.
Yeah.
So I choose just not to go.
a lot of people do that.
Which is
you know.
unfortunate,
I
right.
find that the people who visit the most are the ones who are on the Obamacare.
Right, because they
because
go for
they
free.
don't they go for free.
And
Those of
twice
us who
now
pay
I've
for
gotten notices from my primary care physician that I haven't been in years, and I know, well, I'm not going to spend
my
over
health
$100.
care plan went triple in my amount I had to pay
Obamacare.
after
really ruined
Obamacare
it.
passed,
Right.
and my deductible went from about $500 a year to $2,500.
Yeah. What people don't.
I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to say, I'm going to take my money and put it in a savings account,
Right.
and if I have a medical emergency, I will then use that money rather than pay for insurance,
Yeah.
because the deductible at $2,500 or $3,000 a year means I'm already through most of my year before I can have insurance cover anything. I'm paying out of pocket up
Right.
to that point.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that there's a great subject on the insurance, because over 22,000 people lost their insurance on it with that. But anyways, we've got about 3 minutes left. And what I'd like to do is go to each one of yous, and, you know, how do people get in touch with you, and, you know, real quick on,
James at jamesspillane.org and www.jamesspillane.org.
ask for the vote.
I'm Kevin Verville. My phone number is 603-731-0654, and my email address is K as in Kevin, G as in Gary, Verville at gmail.com. Give me a call, drop me an email, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you.
All of my information is contained at electalanburstein.com. Elect Alan, A-L-A-N.
We're going to put that on the screen too, by the way.
Great.
You'll give that information after.
Perfect.
Of course, you know, I always tell everyone, I live at 41 Hall Road, Londonderry, wherever I do, come by my house, have a cup of coffee, tell me what the issues are.
That big marine flag, right?
Right, yeah, look for the marine flag, just watch out for the booby traps. If
Yes.
you go a different way.
Yeah,
Don't come off the walkway.
people are less likely to come do
yeah.
that in the boondocks where we're at. But
Well,
But we need to encourage voters to contact us. I mean, after all,
Absolutely.
an informed electorate is the
and you're-
prerequisite for
and
democracy.
you're asking them to vote for you, is that what you're
I
telling me?
certainly am.
Huh? Yeah,
Certainly
everyone
am.
that's watching this, you're asking them
Absolutely.
I want
We-
their vote in the primary.
Right.
I want their vote in the general. I'm a public servant. I do this as volunteer work. I donated my $200 last year to Project Linus and to the New Hampshire Scholarship Fund. I will be doing that again. I am a public servant. I am here to work for you in Concord. If there's something I can do for you, please
That's
let
awesome.
me know. That's what the
That's
job
honorable.
is.
And let's just remind everyone, you get 3 votes in Deerfield,
Right.
Candia, and
Yes.
Nottingham, and here are your 3.
Well, you
that
know,
we're asking.
I tell you, Janine, you know, you brought in a great team there. I can't take credit on this one. You know what I mean? You brought in two
Well,
good
I saw them on
conservatives.
Facebook doing a sine wave together, the
Right.
3 of them, and I thought, well, this is our last show before the primary,
You ain't kidding, yeah.
because I'll be out of town next week, and I don't know
probably,
where
I
you're
may
going to
be down the Cape, so I got to. We'll probably just cancel next week. But anyways,
You could
know,
rerun this show.
well, the thing is, we
can
want
come
this
back.
show actually to be ran also in their district.
Right,
there.
I don't know that they
You know
have
what I
public
mean?
access
If
though,
they
but
have
you
that.
can put it on your website, and you
website,
can put it on
website.
Facebook.
You know,
Yeah.
this is like an
might get a
untold
viewer.
hero, this program. We have like Drew and Aaron that work here. Awesome
Another,
job.
it's a different Aaron.
And yeah, I mean, that work here. I mean, the access there is freedom of speech. It's one of the best things they ever done, you know, here in town. We have Dottie Grover, who was like the queen. She passed
And
away.
her little dog, what was
You
her
know what I
little
mean?
dog's
Oh,
name?
I don't remember
He
the
was
name.
so cute.
But I mean, she was the queen of Access TV, and she made such a deal that benefits. So hopefully you all get it, because Comcast pays a lot of this money.
Right.
We're on MetroCast. with-
half the
it's such a
towns on
different
MetroCast and
30
half the
seconds.
towns on Comcast, and it's a strange situation with
Right.
our district, because
Well,
part of our
get
district
them
is
to talk to the
Right.
people in here, in this studio, on how to make a deal to get your government channels where they can watch this stuff.
Right, I've been doing this since 2006.
Janine, once again, it was a great show. You ready to run again tomorrow?
Yes, I think I'm working
You
tomorrow.
have another
but
show today?
I'll try and get 5, I have 2 more shows today.
I want to thank
Yeah.
you all for coming, and it's been an honor.
Thank you for having us.
you here. Aaron,
I'm just gonna wave to you guys.
thank you
far
for
away.
being here. Once again, who's looking out for you?
Bye.